my friends. Today is indeed a good day. I can love you and be your friend, even if we think differently, believe differently, act differently, look different, or come from different places in life. You are welcome here. With that in mind, let's get our day started together. Let's slow down together each morning to contemplate valuable precepts and how we might apply these in our thoughts, words, and actions today, and how they might grow into practices, habits, and even ways of life, so that our life's example is rooted firmly in core values that are a benefit to ourselves and to all around us. Good morning. It's a wonderful Monday morning. Many of us are headed back into the workplace. And today we are talking about trust. We are slowing down our day to consider some of these things that are valuable, that we might carry them with us, and they may prove to help us throughout our day. So today we're talking about trust. And when I say trust, depending on your perspective, you may immediately, something may come to mind about another person. And you may just think that trust is about trusting others. Or maybe something comes to mind and you think that it's just about being trustworthy yourself. But trust isn't just one-sided. Trust is about a relationship. Trust is always about a relationship. And it is whether that relationship has proven to give us an assurance in that relationship, right? Even when a relationship is new, we can look to things like reputation, character, abilities, strengths, truth. We can look to those things to help us in building that initial trust. In business, when we work with vendors or customers, there is some level of trust that has to exist. I have to trust that when I hand my money to someone, that I am going to receive what I expect on the other side of that relationship. So trust is not just a one-sided coin. Now, when it comes to building trust, there's a saying. I've thrown the graphic up. We may have heard it before. Trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. So trust, you can think of trust as a very precious but fragile item, right? It takes effort. It takes commitment. In building trust, it is a daily commitment. We can't expect too much too soon. In relationships, in business, in everything that we do, our expectations and how we set those expectations are going to really drive whether or not we are trusting the other party and whether they are trusting us. So it's best to take small steps and small commitments where possible. Obviously, sometimes we have to jump off into the deep end. We have a need, and it must be filled. But it is best, where possible, to take small steps first to build that trust. We must be diligent to follow through on our promises. That one, sometimes we need to take pause there. not just follow through on our promises halfway. We need to be diligent. We need to take ownership and care. If I get the job done, but it is clear that I just did it halfway, well, that I may have met my commitment, but that may not be enough to build trust. That may actually build doubt. The diligence and the follow through is important. We need to acknowledge both success and failures and work together constructively. Now, we can't be afraid to acknowledge failures, right? We can't just hide from the failures. And we can't be too proud to acknowledge the successes in a positive way. And we can't be about blame. I saw someone talking about actually, I think it was Selma Hayek. She was talking about her marriage, and she said that it was a wonderful marriage because they don't come to each other saying, you don't do this, you don't do, it's not a blame game for them. They acknowledge an issue in the relationship. They act as one, and they work together constructively to work on these things. This is how you build trust. And then, as trust grows, we'll be more at ease with making commitments and accepting commitments, bigger and bigger, in that relationship. So it is a process. It is not a hand over your list of qualifications and now I trust you. No, it takes time. Now, what happens when trust is breached? Trust is broken. How do we rebuild trust? Now, it's important to understand why we did it. Now, if you say, well, I didn't do it. Well, if you have set an expectation, if you've made a promise, and you fail to follow through on that promise, whether you intentionally with malice broke that trust, or whether you did not have enough, you weren't diligent enough to see the factors that could cause failure and take preventative steps, you allowed that to happen. Now that's hard for a selfish and egotistical person to own and accept. They would rather point to other people, point to other reasons, give excuses. But if you cannot get past this step, you will never build trust. You will never build healthy relationships. You may put yourself in a position of power to command and demand, but you will not build trust. So we have to honestly understand the real reasons why we allowed ourselves to not meet the expectation, to break someone else's trust. That is step one. If we're not there, we might as well stay right there and work on it, because we have to have that right at the foundational level before we're going to move forward in rebuilding trust. Then we have to ask ourselves, are we truly willing to put in the work to make a change? If I see that I missed something, am I willing to do preventatively what is necessary so that I don't miss that again? I have to be able to be willing to myself to admit, am I willing to make changes? Am I willing to accept that responsibility, learn from my failures, and make changes, not just excuses? If I can commit to myself honestly and truthfully, only then is it time for me to apologize. If you apologize and you're not willing to accept your own responsibility, you're not willing to make any changes, apologizing is futile. You're just setting up another level of commitment that you're going to fail, and you're going to break trust even worse than if you had just kept your mouth shut. If we acknowledge that we have failed and there is a apology that is worthy, we also have to acknowledge that we have caused some kind of hurt, some kind of something that was not expected in the relationship on the other side, that we did something and that there is a consequence for that. Just because we apologize doesn't mean that immediately they have to accept our apology and that everything is fine and we will continue business as normal. No. A breach of trust requires time for healing. It's not about me, right? It's not about, okay, I'm ready for us to move forward. No. I was responsible for that breach in trust. I need to give time. And then giving them time and taking the effort to rebuild, I need to let their needs guide me, right? The person who broke the trust doesn't get to lead the way anymore for a while during the rebuilding and the healing. They need to put the other side's needs above their own. They need to make the effort. They need to put in the rebuilding effort. You can't go in and wreck someone's home and say, I apologize, and then expect them to get to work building everything back. And that's just a metaphor. I'm not talking about home wrecking. I was actually thinking about a bulldozer driving through the front of a house, right? But it applies both directions. And will we commit to transparent communication? What do I mean by transparent communication? Transparent communication is not us admitting when they catch us again that, yes, I did that. That is not transparent communication at all. Transparent communication is we're willing to work towards keeping our commitments, but we're willing to police ourselves. We're willing to voluntarily communicate when we either fail again or even get close to it, right? Transparent is, let's say I failed on something. Well, it's helpful if I can communicate with the rest of the relationship. Hey, we had another incident today. We worked through it, but it was similar to our failure enough that we recognized it, and we put the steps in place that we talked about, that we wanted to do to change and to make amends, and this is how we handled it. Rather than the other party finding out later, right? That transparent communication is key in rebuilding that trust. To give you an example, a real world example, this weekend was going to be my first sort of on-call weekend to keep an eye on things so that our senior person that is training several of us in how to help come alongside and take some of the weight off of him. It was my weekend to watch these things that he watches every single day. And we want to help take some of that load off of his shoulders, right? Well, I missed something early Sunday morning. It did not catch my attention because of what I had going on early Sunday morning. And before I could catch it and get to it, he was already in there on it had it resolved. Now, a person that is just worried about their own ego would say, "Oh, well, he should have." No, this was an impacting incident. It needed to be resolved as quickly as possible. He jumped in because it needed to be done and needed to be done right then. He was not angry with me that I missed it, but that is not an excuse for me to have missed it. So I am going to look at it, determine what additional proactive things and steps and controls I can put in place so that I am immediately aware and so that I can do better the next time. There was no malicious activity there. I'm not a horrible person just trying to let him do all of the work. But that does not absolve me from needing to make changes so that I can build that trust, so that I can be that that person that he can rely on, that he knows, even if he sees it, that he knows that I'm taking care of it, right? That takes time. That takes effort. That takes years of building. And in one incident, we can tear it down. So it is important for us to be diligent. So this is what I'm focusing on today. And you see, I'm not teaching you because I have it perfect. I am studying this because I need it today for my life. Hope you have a wonderful Monday. If you want to talk about any of these, reach out. It's always wonderful. You guys have amazing things that you are able to share with me, and we're able to talk through and chew on things, and I really appreciate it. I love you. My friends, y'all have a wonderful, a marvelous Monday, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, yeah. Good morning. It's a new day.